In this episode of the Rockets Chop Shop Pod, I'm joined by Rockets insider Alykhan Bijani, and we talk about Summer League. Talk about Jabari, Tari, Cam, Amen, all of it in this episode. Tap in, enjoy.
Sound 42. Turn it up. It's the Chop Not Slap Show. It's OG Ron C and DJ Candlestick.
Shop Stars OVO Gang.
DJ Candlestick. One time for the homie DJ Screw. Already. I'm feeling thrown in this bitch.
The Rockets Chop Shop merch store is up and running, and right now, just for our listeners, everything is 20% off. 20% off everything. Make sure you click the banner at the top of the page to get the coupon code. On there is 20% off everything in the store. You know, you can go grab you a Man Praying Hands t-shirt, the CSG t-shirts, get you a H-Town, down, 10 toes down t-shirt. We try to keep it real Houston. We try to keep it real Rockets. We try to keep it real at the end of the day. So, yeah, keep rocking with us, and we're going to keep dropping heat.
This is something I know.
To another episode of the Rockets Chop Shop Pod. I got my man here, Alykhan, Rockets Insider on Twitter. And we're going to be talking about just some of the things that we've seen from the Houston Rockets, some of these young guys in the Summer League this year. As y'all know, Jabari is out there looking like the primest version of whatever favorite scorer. So I've heard people say T-Mac and all these things. And in comparison to how he looked last year, night and day. Cam Whitmore is out there, had a better game yesterday. Tari Eason is being Tari Eason. And Ime Thompson, even though he's injured, still just, has the fan base buzzing. So, Alykhan, I just wanted to kind of, get your feedback on this. And we'll start with Jabari, like, from your perspective, and I've talked about this a little bit on a live stream that we've done. The number one thing that sticks out to me for him is his handles have really improved. But there's just so many things like in his game that are night and day from last year. What are you seeing out of Jabari? What have you seen so far from him in Summer League?
Yeah, no, first of all, handling, absolutely. I'm not going to focus so much more on the points because he's scoring a lot, which is great. We want to see that in the Summer League game, right? Him dominating. But I want to focus more so on the other things that will translate whenever he's playing alongside better players, right? When he's playing alongside Fred and Dillon and Alp and others in the starting lineup. Defensively, because I don't think that's really been talked about enough. For me, it's been the defense, what I've been noticing from him. And you and I talked about this on Twitter a little bit, but for me, he is best when he's along the perimeter because he can be aggressive. And what I mean by that is when he's switching and he's aggressively switching where he's kind of jumping in to the path of the ball handler or jumping into where the ball handler is going, he can use his wingspan and do things and kind of, deter what the offense was trying to do versus when he's in drop, he becomes a little more passive. And that's also was a problem with him. And he needs to work on that when he was a help defender and Alp was at the 5. He would be a little tentative on what to be able to do. Do I need to help out? Do I not? He would sometimes overhelp because he was trying to compensate for that. And that would create a lot of other issues. So he still has those problems. And I've seen that in Summer League still. But at least whenever he's switching or when he's playing drop, but at the level of the screen, the aggressiveness to me has been night and day from last year because not only is he trying to, but he's been good at it.
In fact, I've seen where he's actually above the screen. And I don't know if people understand when you're a ball handler and a guy's waiting for you in front of the screen, ahead of the screen, it really is kind of jarring for, when they pop out to see him. And that aggression is something that I did not see. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me, why did Steven Silas think that was a thing to put Jabari in a deep drop, which I just never got that. Is there some secret behind it that we don't know about? Because it seemed pretty stupid to me, but go ahead.
No, it's like their whole purpose of their defense was to be able to help, right? They were a help defense, meaning that whenever they're playing a pick and roll, that corner guy would always help, right? And so
Yeah.
they would be okay with putting Jabari there. They figured the help would be there. But the problem is, for how much Steven Silas talked about technique, the technique was awful, not just from the point of attack defender, but also from the Jabari, but also from the help defender kind of stunting over or helping. And then also the guy who's playing the two corner shooters once the corner guy helps off. The technique was not good. People did not attack closeouts effectively. People not do a lot of do things well. And so I think my rationale is that he probably wanted to implement the most basic defense he could to hide the fact that his players were not able to effectively do the technique stuff, right? That being said, Jabari is long, and he likes to poke and use his hands, and he overcompensates because he doesn't have the strength yet, so he uses his wingspan. So if that's the case, you want to put him in a situation where he's effective, and that's on the perimeter. And same with LP. LP is really has quick hands, and this is, I don't want to get too much in LP, but LP is good when you hedge him or when you put him on the perimeter and you trap him because he can use those hands. So when those are your strengths, you shouldn't go back and do drop, right? And I think that's what Ime Udoka talked about in his opening presser. I want a big who has a different skill, right? He wasn't saying as in the sense that he wants to like take out LP from the starting lineup or take out Jabari. I think he was saying in the sense of, hey, I have two guys who I know who can be good aggressive perimeter defenders in terms of being involved in screen and roll and attacking the screen. If I have another guy who can play that drop coverage effectively and be that true rim protector, or somebody who's good being a rim protector off a drop, then that gives me a full complement of guys to play different defensive styles with. And that's kind of how I see the difference from Silas versus Udoka. But credit to Jabari, even in drop, he's shown improvements. His lateral quickness has gotten better. I think that yoga and the fact that he's working on his core, that was a big thing for him going into the offseason. The Rockets really wanted him not just to get upper body strength, but work on his core. Look at his legs. His legs from last year to this year, a lot more bulkier. He's not losing as much space. In the first half of the first game of Summer League, he got pushed off his spots a little bit. And I think as he got more confident in the second half, they were not pushing him off his spots. He was leaning back into the defensive player, not leaning away. And I think those are the types of things that are all from the fact that he's improved his core and he's able to do a lot more of those things that he thought he could do last year.
Yeah, defensively, I mean, just like you pointed out, especially in the second game versus Detroit, dude was guarding Jalen Duren and Wiseman, and not only just on the perimeter, but in the post as well. And if you guys remember how like light he was last year and getting pushed around by guards, wings, I think that was something that was very noticeable. Obviously, you can see the muscle definition is much like he's a bigger player, and he looks physically just more imposing this year on the court. I would say that what I foresee with Coach Udoka and how they're using him, I like the aggression, because the reason I was confused with Steven Silas's thing is that when he was coming out of Auburn, the appeal to Jabari was the fact that he was a forward that played the perimeter at an elite level, and I don't know if it speaks bigger to like this philosophical view that Steven Silas had with his implementation of his like his basketball plan and how he executed it. It just seems like there was no room for anything. It was just like almost rigid. We're going to play the drop. Doesn't matter who the player. Alp can do X, Y, and Z. We know he can do all these things, but because I want this and this is what I want, I'm going to force him to play this type of defense. Never really explored, like the hard hedging and recovering or any other types of variations of drops for him. Yeah. And really made Alp look bad in a lot of games, Blazers, throughout that stretch. So like you pointed out with Coach Udoka, I think the fact he said being young is not an excuse. I love that, because like they're professionals, so you're gonna have to like see whether they could sink or swim. And I love that they were gonna have accountability now, that if they don't get it right, then it's a teaching moment, but they might just not play as much until they do. And I think that's gonna expedite some of their development for some of these young guys that we have.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to ask you, I brought up the defense with Jabari, and you said you talked about it previously. Is there anything offensively besides his ball handling that stood out to you that you feel like, what, this is a big improvement from last year?
I mean, I would say, I know it sounds vague, but the confidence is definitely different. I think he looks like he's sure of himself, but on a technical basis, the main thing now is that he's more balanced on his shots. He still does get away from in the post, and I think this is an area of improvement that he needs to really work on. And I still see this as a big gap for him, especially given his size. When he tries to post up players, he isn't generating enough separation. Usually, as you would know, when you're in the post, the big men, they use their girth and their size to be able to bump off the defender, to just, even if it's just an inch of space, just to be able to, whatever your shot is, a hook shot, a turnaround, to get that off cleanly. And the more skilled players use like their moves, their shakes, like the dream shake, get the guy leaning one way so you can get your shot off. Jabari has neither right now. He did have one nice step back, but aside from that, his strength on his legs isn't strong enough to really just generate that separation. And even when he does, he's not timing it well enough.
Yeah.
So the defenders are crowding him. He gets fouled a lot on them, but they're able to recover and contest. So all his jumpers look just off balance. And I think I forgot the guy's name that was calling the game. He kind of pointed it out.
Seth
But
Greenberg.
just Seth Greenberg, exactly. He pointed that he's always off balance on his post because he's not strong enough to get that bump to move that momentum. But the handles are leading to like the ability to attack the basket off his closeouts. I think that's a huge step from where he was, where he looked like he's never played basketball in his life when we first saw him till now. What offensively are you seeing? Because I think to me, just those two things, because a lot of the things are pretty much the same. He just looks more polished in his technique, executing them.
I'm a little concerned still about his 3-point shot. Going back to the not concerned like to a point where I'm like freaking out, but he was 2 for 8, I think, against Detroit from 3. And some of those shots, even his game winner, which I mean that was a quick release, they seem a little flat. And that's because I don't think he generates as much power whenever he dips the ball and is kind of generate, like he's trying to dip the ball, get some power, get some rhythm into a shot. I don't think he gets as much power as he needs to. So he doesn't use his legs as much. And I think that's still something that I want to continue to watch him do, is how can that shot not be as flat moving forward. In terms of his post, completely agree. He needs to get lower too. I mean,
exactly. Standing
part
up.
of that, he's a little too upright. I think Seth Greenberg talked about on the broadcast too. The power in the legs, 100%, and that will also help. I mean, getting low helps, but also just the power adding into it too. The thing with the dribble that impresses me the most has been whenever it's not just off the closeouts, but it's actually whenever he gets the ball at the top of the key. It's not like he's curving to the rim. And what I mean by that is sometimes players will try to shift a little to the right, and they'll kind of like drive right and then like their way back towards the middle of the floor towards the rim. Jabari is just going north to south. He's going straight line. And that's a big improvement because he's getting on the level of the defender. There was one play against Detroit. I don't remember the time. I can't tell you, but I know it's in the highlight package. So if you watch his highlights, you'll see it. He's being guarded against Jaden Ivey. So Jaden Ivey's a smaller guy, right? Smaller defender. He gets lower than Jaden Ivey's stance. So the smaller guard gets lower than Jaden Ivey's stance, beats him all the way to the rim, and scores. And I don't think I saw Jabari get that low last season at all. And the fact that he's getting low and not only getting a little bit passing a quicker guard and getting separation and getting to the rim and getting his back in front of the defender, that was great for me to see. And that's something that's been consistent for him in Summer League so far, is that not just attacking closeouts, but when he has that ball and he can kind of go from this side of the court to the other side, initiate offense. But if it's not there, he just gets low and gets right to the rim. And that's something that's going to help him a lot in taking advantage of attacking mismatches going into next season.
Yeah, I'm really excited about because this is just 1 year of development, and y'all got to remember Jabari's still only 20 years old, and
younger than Amen, man, that's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Think how do you let's try to extrapolate what I know limited sample size, but into the season, fitting into the we assume that he's going to be given the benefit of the doubt to return as a starter. Whether that stays or that goes, it's up in the air. But I assume just based off of different factors, he's going to get that benefit. Where do you see him being utilized offensively and defensively within what we've seen from Ime Udoka and his system? And kind of if we assume that some of the Celtic stuff is going to be used, what role do you think Jabari is going to be playing in that? And just before you answer, I've seen this. I know this is just summer league, and we don't have Jalen and Fred and everybody on. I got the read that between Jabari and Tari is they were initiating offense, bringing the ball up the court, that maybe Ben and the coaching staff wanted to see them in that Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown role of those
Like that.
wings that are running pick and rolls. And I mean, if that's the vision, I'm all for it. But where do you think, like, on the full team, they're gonna fit? Jabari specifically is gonna fit in.
Man, it's tough because I watched a lot of the double big tape from where Ime Udoka's time there, and I not because you're asking about Jabari. I struggle sometimes figuring out how the role will change with LP in there because Robert Williams and Al Horford are two very different bigs from Jabari Smith Jr. and Alperen Sengun, right? I can see both of them kind of playing in that Al Horford type of role where they were running the dribble handoffs or they were kind of posting up or doing things. I think whenever LP is playing alongside Jabari and Jabari is the 4, we'll see him a lot in that slot, but more in that Jason Tatum role. And I said this when Ime was first hired. I think he'll be in the guy who can kind of get the ball and attack if needed to. And he's getting that confidence to be able to attack and do things. And that allows LP to be able to be that main screener and decision maker from there. I think with Tari, the Jalen Brown thing is something I had not heard. And I actually, when I read your tweet about it, I really liked it because I think just body size, the way they attack the floor, the way he used to, when Jalen came into the league and how he would dribble, the way Tari dribbles and is trying to improve on that. It's very similar stuff. And I'm glad you brought that comparison in. I could definitely see that. I think just because of the broad shoulders and how Jalen Brown likes to use his shoulders, very similar to Eric Gordon. If you're a Rockets fan, you remember Eric Gordon, when he attacks the rim, he don't use his arms. He uses his shoulders, broad shoulders to hit.
Truck
Tari
stick,
Eason, yeah. Tari Eason has that truck stick too. And very similar to Jalen Brown. And I think from that perspective, I think you have two guys who can attack the rim. And Ime is, when you go back and watch Boston tape, for him, it was moving side to side with the intent of touching the paint. Well, now you have a guy like Jabari who can not only touch the paint because he can establish position down there, but like we just talked about a few minutes ago, he can drive and touch the paint and do things. Tari in the summer league has been really adamant about getting to the paint when he touches the basketball, when he drives. So a lot of this stuff is really good to see for me. I honestly don't think I know enough yet for me to tell you how it'll look like for Alp and Jalen. I think Jabari, I think a lot of it will have to also do with if Alp can shoot the 3. I saw a few possessions in the second summer league game, maybe because now they had more practice time under their belt, so they could add a couple layers of different things. But they ran pistol. They ran 21 series, which we haven't seen much since the Mike D'Antoni era with the Rockets. Yeah. And that they had it where Jabari and Jay Huff would initiate from the top of the key. If Jabari can do that, and if he fakes the handoff and then steps up for a 3, that's great. If Alpi can do that, it's even better because then Alpi can take a mismatch to the post and be able to do some things. I think a lot of it will have to do with who they view as that slot guy and who they view as that top of the key guy. I think right now, if I had to put money on it, I would put LP as the top of the key guy and Jabari as a slot guy, just because I think from the perspective of decision making, you want the top of the key guy who's initiating which play they're going to run. You trust LP a little more than you trust Jabari at this point. But I think Jabari is proving that in a second unit, he can be that guy who complements whoever your second unit bench guard is going to be.
Facts. And with some of those actions that Al Horford, a lot of them were set start from the top of the key, where he would be able to make a decision about which side of the court they wanted to initiate the secondary from. There's a lot of similarities between Horford and Alperen as far as like the late stage Al Horford and how Alperen plays. And I think the 3-point shooting is definitely going to be like a huge deciding factor on, how effective he's going to be within this type of offense. Obviously, to me, he's probably a more gifted passer.
For sure.
And a misnomer in what people have for like defensive bigs is that they have to be like the Clint Capella model for them to be able to be effective. Like playing, if you watch, like I always think about like when what's his name, Pau Gasol's brother Marc Gasol played in Toronto. He was like big and slow, but their defense was so elite because he was just such a high IQ positional defender with that big body. If Alperen can just learn where to be, anticipate where the help is coming from, and just be in that void where and beat guys to the spot, he doesn't have to jump through.
And if his teammates help him,
exactly
do those things, yeah.
And I think with Brooks and VanVleet, you have more IQ on the perimeter, so that's going to look totally different this year. But yeah, I'm excited. I think Jabari. I mean, I still think he's like a year or two away
for sure.
from reaching what people assume that he's going to be. I think this was a great flash, but the competition level isn't, really anything to write home
His
about.
body. It's
But
all gonna be about his body
yeah,
for him.
yeah,
All about his
it's
body.
all that's all it is. Even for Jalen, for all these young, it's really like once they fill in, you'll get to see their everything as it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Next guy I want to talk about. This is our top pick from this year, Ime Thompson. Obviously, he got injured at the end of the Blazers game, which sucks because I was really intrigued by how he was playing. If you guys watch the channel, I just dropped a video breaking down some of his plays. And for me, watching him like in OTE, I was very skeptical about how his abilities would translate because he came off as, high super athlete that can generate passes because they're just faster than everybody. The defense collapsed. Instead of if he doesn't get a layup, he's going to kick it out, just like bailout type of passes. But as it led up to the draft, started learning more about him, hearing his interviews. I watched a video of him breaking down film, and this kid actually he understands basketball like on a high level. And I pointed out in one of my videos that the question when they asked him in his introductory press conference for the Rockets is, "How do you describe Cam Whitmore's game?" And he started using terms like second jump and explosive, and I was like, okay, he's a student of the game. And when you get one of those type of dudes at the point guard position or whatever position he's going to play here, it's really exciting. And just watching him how he navigated that game, the poise, the fact that this was the biggest game of his life up until now, and you were not able to tell. He didn't force anything. His reads were on point. There was a play that him and Huff ran a pick and roll, and one of my if you guys watch this channel, I do a lot of pick and roll breakdowns. When the tag came for Huff off of Tari Eason, Alykhan, when I say immediately his head snapped to Tari and he just whipped the ball two hands like a bullet pass straight to Tari. And I've never seen any of our guards of the young core ever do that since it was almost like a computer, bro. Like he's trained for this. As soon as that tag came, he just just hit it right there. Once again, here, let's look at this play. You can see now they got Barry at the 5. Now, the initial read is going to be Jabari. But as soon as, I want you guys to notice something. As soon as he sees that help, which is helping off Tari, look at his head. Wow. Let's see that again. Barry comes for the screen. They're going to do a little slow action here he's going to pop out for and kind of just go down with him. Tries to ghost it. Scoot kind of does. I don't know what kind of defense you call that, but the tag has to come from Tari Eason's man, and he comes down to tag. This is a read that, dude, I've been making videos for two plus years, man, and just waiting for one of our guys to not even just to do it like he just did it, but just to make this play. But look how fast he processes this. Dude, man, come on. Like, what are you seeing from a man just from his short play that we've seen so far?
He probably had the most impressive summer league debut of any of their like core 6. All due respect to everybody. I mean, he was great. And credit to the Rockets. They put him in situations to be successful. And by the way, if you're watching this and you haven't seen Frank's video, the breakdown he did on man, you got to watch it. Because it's really good because he does go into detail about those passes and different things. But one specific thing I know the Rockets were trying to do is like they treated him like he was like Russ or like Derrick Rose or one of those athletic guards where teams are going to go under the screen. Well, how do you stop a defender from going under the screen? At the last second, as you're going inside the screen, you change the angle. And so what Jay Huff would do is he would go and a lot of the pick and rolls initially were the top of the key or the slot. Mainly the slot, and it would be called an angle pick and roll. So he would go up and then he would change his angle last second. Yeah. And what that does is Scooter Henderson a few times was trying to go under. Jay Huff's screen, because it was at an angle, it didn't allow him to go under, so he had to stay over. Amen got the advantage. And took advantage of it, went from there, and he got to the rim a few times and had that little lefty floater, had the layup with his left hand a couple times, switched his hands. But I really liked how the Rockets coaching staff put him in positions for us to see his strengths, and I think that's so important for a young for a team to do with the young players to put them in
A
position.
novel idea, right? Given the past.
I know
I'm
we're
sorry,
going to
go
talk
ahead.
about it with Tari and Cam and others, but I mean, the Rockets have been doing that for all their guys. I mean, and I think we tweeted about it during the Detroit game. They're running like the most basic pick and roll you can run to make it easy and keep everything in front.
Yeah.
It's like an empty pick and roll. And for listeners, empty pick and roll is when you're running pick and roll, but there's nobody in that near side corner. So because there's nobody in the near side corner, there can't be a help defender who comes and doubles or traps or stunts or anything. That corner is empty. So you can go baseline and go from there. So there's been possessions for all four of the young guys where they're running that pick and roll and they're driving baseline. So everything, the entire defense is in front of them, allows them to practice making those reads. And with Amen, like you talked about, he knows he's looking at the low man. He's looking at who the help defender is.
Exactly.
And as soon as they make a mistake, as soon as they commit or anything, he has that pass ready to go. Right. And that to me has been the most impressive part. I mean, I have to piggyback off what you said. Like his decision making and the speed at which he deciphers it and makes this, and especially a very quick pass. It's not a pass where he's like, oh, I recognize it. How do I make the pass? He knows whether it needs to be a bounce pass. He knows whether it needs to be a skip pass, whatever it needs to be. He is really good at determining also how to get the ball there too, along with processing the information.
Man, bro, like I'm just so excited. And you've heard me say I've said this. You cannot tank or be bad for a couple of years and not come out with a lead facilitator, a point guard, whatever you want to call them.
Some sort of engine. And
Yeah, you got to have that engine, bro. That's why Cade went first over Jalen. That's why Paulo went first over Jabari and Chet. The engines are the driving forces for these teams, and they really raise the floor. And I think that I don't know what you think about his what he's going to be like in his first year in the NBA. Obviously, once again, the defense is real vanilla. If he does become a force to be reckoned with, teams are going to start crowding the paint and daring him to shoot.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to come down to how he's able to counter that.
Reminds me of Giddey, Frank. He
Yep,
reminds me of Giddey.
exactly.
And
exactly.
I heard a scout during I was talking to a few scouts before the draft, and one of the scouts was like, your audience full of Rockets fans, they I know they don't like Oklahoma City because he follows the stuff on Twitter, but he's like, honestly, Amen Thompson's very similar to Josh Giddey in terms of the style of play, and Amen has more athleticism, but because he's like a very high elite top 1% athlete. But in terms of the way they play, it's very similar. Both very smart
similar.
and dissect the offense. And so for me, it's like, I know maybe people don't want to say it, but like if he can have a similar season to what Josh Giddey had his first season, I'll be very happy with that because Josh Giddey played excellent basketball. So
he did.
And so for me, Amen, if he could just come out and play with the second unit and get confidence in playing in that way, and also learn technique defensively, like you talked about with OTE, like he was more athletic, more fast. In the NBA, you can do all that, and that can be an advantage, but you still have to have good technique. Every defender has to have good technique. Once he learns that good technique, how to get in the stands, how to fight over screens, because he struggled a little bit in this one game, kind of navigate screen navigation. He had good moments, bad moments, but once he gets consistent with his technique, oh my God, the sky's the limit for him to be a perennial good two-way player.
Yep, and I think that's what's going to get him minutes, even in his rookie year. Is going to be his two-way ability. Obviously, we have a lot of veterans now, and which is a blessing for him and a luxury that Jalen and even Kevin Porter and Sengun didn't have, Tari didn't have, and Jabari didn't have coming into their rookie seasons. I think the fan base is about to see what these structures that are being put in place by Coach Udoka, the coaching staff, and the on-court coaching they're going to get from the vets. It does wonders for the development of your young guys. Like it'll accelerate it so fast. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, maybe certain games he might get a chance to close depending on the matchups that they have.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as the season, especially, I'm curious to see what he looks like after the All-Star break, if he stays healthy. Because as we know, young guys, once they figure it, they get that little break, their body and their mind kind of refreshes, you get to see like a truer form of their play. So that's going to be very exciting to see for him.
Sure.
Let me pivot over to Tari Eason. I know we don't give a lot, I don't think Rockets fans, we kind of take him for granted. This is a dude that from day one, he's been an impact player on the court for the Rockets. He was an impact player at LSU. When I was leading up to the draft, watching film on him, looking at how he plays and his stats,
Mhm.
he projected out to be a guy that could be an MVP. I promise. I know it sounds hyperbolic, but his advanced metrics off the charts
And the Rockets take
across the
those
board.
advanced metrics seriously, so that makes sense.
Yes. So what is your read from him? I'm like, to me, he is just so much like, he's more polished in the summer league this year. He's bigger. He's more decisive with what he's doing. His defense, his help defense is just elite. And I'm talking about it was good during the season at an NBA level, but the way he's reading the game, it's similar to how Amen Thompson and how I'm bragging about how he reads offense and reads the flow of the plays that he's running. Tari is almost a savant on a defensive end, and it's almost instinctual how he can go from his primary assignment, switch off to go help a teammate out, recover back, and just cause chaos all over the court. What do you see from Tari Eason in summer league so far?
I really like the Trevor Ariza comparison, not from a body type or play style, but more so from the calculation, right? Like defensively. Trevor was so good in the switch scheme because this dude would gamble, but more times than not, his gambling would pay off. And that's kind of what I think of with Tari. Tari can anticipate, and he has an instinctual ability you talked about where he can gamble and it pays off. My favorite play from him, though, so far in Summer League has been when he was defending Jaden Ivey and he was going under the screen, right? And the defender was how we talked about earlier with Amen, kind of changing the angle to make it difficult. He couldn't go under, but he still recovered in time to block the shot on Jaden Ivey and take it coast to coast for a dunk. That to me is one of the most impressive plays I've seen from the Rockets so far in the Summer League. And that just tells me all I need to know about his ability. Defensively with him, or just overall in his game, actually, he's the one guy of their core six who I can't tell what his ceiling is. And that in a good way. I don't know what to make of Tari Eason because he can be their best player, honestly, of this rebuild. He could also be a defensive stalwart. He could, I don't know, man. This guy has so much potential, and just his body, man. I thought he had the most NBA ready body. Now it's obviously Cam has the most NBA ready body of their core six and going into their first season. But because Tari's body was so good, he got playing time, and he started making those like plays that you're like, wow, man, this kid is good. And now to a point, like you said, where he's more polished, he's doing things that we didn't see him do. He's actually dribbling the ball more confident, with a lot more confidence in the half court. We know what he can do in transition, but in the half court, running those empty pick and rolls, just running pick and rolls in general, getting to the rim, absorbing contact with his body, learning how to do that, while also leaning in and drawing the foul and still finishing. I mean, the stuff like that to me is exciting because then the Jalen Brown comparisons you give make a lot more sense because he has those attributes to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think for him it's the ceiling stuff is really hard to gauge because like the overall skill set, he's somebody that's like the hooper. Tari
Yeah.
plays like a hooper that is an elite, like can be an elite defensive player, which is not a usual combination. Usually, guys that get that tag of being hoopers, great feel, they're not like two-way players. But and then you start extrapolating that, like he could just maybe this is his baseline and this is what he's going to be for the rest of his career, or he could add more to his game. Like he was running pick and rolls. He was playing the point guard in some possessions and was running pick
Yeah.
and roll action with Jabari, with Huff. Like it's. I mean, I credit to the coaching staff for having that imagination. Which I don't want to keep bragging on Steven Silas, but I mean, some of this stuff was like, come on, like we could have done like, come on, we could have had like maybe like
Just
Garuba and
experiment, man.
Sengun played. Yeah, this like you're the worst team. You want to be bad. This is the time to do all of this stuff. If I was I would have had the weirdest lineups just to see what I have, get data points on them. I don't know if you know this, but the core four from last year: Jalen, Jabari, Tari, and Sengun only played like 220 possessions together on the court at the same time,
Not enough. That's
which
not
is
enough.
criminal,
Yeah.
like criminal. And but for Tari Eason, I'm really amazed at like just overall how consistent he's been. Is there a world, and this is what people have floated around, where Tari actually pushes to start? If he is like, because I honestly think like his baseline is going to be like if you let him play, he's going to deliver. is there a world where he pushes? I don't know where, but because I don't think Brooks is going to be on the bench this year for sure, and I know it's Fred is not going to be on the bench. I think everybody else is going to be given the benefit, but I don't think they're going to be like in place forever. So, is there a world where you see actually him pushing that narrative or that conversation about getting him on the court with the starters to see?
You need shooting, and Ime is very big on shooting. If he
Facts.
can shoot a consistent three ball and still do what he does defensively, he can shoot a consistent three ball and play fast like they want to. I think there's a legitimate chance he could start. Now, that being said, I still think it's going to be Jabari. But, like I talked about last season, Jabari struggled at times being that weak side help defender. I'm not saying he needs to rotate over and block a shot, but at least making it more difficult when Alp's on the perimeter and the defense breaks down. And Jabari was oftentimes needing to step in and make a decision. He has to be better at making those decisions. If he is, right now he's a better offensive player than Tari Eason. So that to me gives him the starting nod over Tari. However, if he does not play well, and you and I talked about it many times, if Ime sees that you're not playing well defensively, that's the calling card. I don't think he'll be scared to put in Tari. One lineup I'm eager to see if it ever works out. I don't think it'll work from a spacing perspective, but I'm eager to see if Ime ever went to it. Fred, Dillon, Tari, Jabari, and then Sengun. Could that potentially be a lineup where Dillon slides to the 2, and then you have Tari and Jabari there? I think that is more of a closing lineup, and I would put good money, if I was a betting man, that will be a closing lineup we will see a few times this season.
That's a beautiful. I mean, defensively, I think that's like the perfect type of perimeter lineup. And I don't want people to think that honestly, I think the Sengun is bad on defense thing gets over. So like, it goes both ways. Like especially when you're running a team scheme like drop, it's like a team defense. There's concepts there. There is some chemistry that I'm seeing with Tari and Jabari because I kind of hate the fact that they have to compete against each other.
They're so close
because they have a synergy on defense when they're adjacent to each other that I saw from literally the first summer league game when they played Chet Holmgren, and they were just wrecking havoc and I use this analogy. I don't know if you're a football fan, but I use the analogy of Jabari is like Ray Lewis and Tari's like Ed Reed. And if you guys are football fans, because Jabari is like, he's more calculated with his defense. He's very technique sound, like how Ray was gap sound. He's going to make the right play, make the right calls. And Ed, if you guys watch any of like the documentaries about those Ravens team, Ed was let to roam. The coach didn't even tell him what he could be on a receiver, but he'll be in the middle of the field. But they let him roam to cause havoc. And between the two of them, they kind of had this like just locked down type of defense. And I see that with Jabari and Tari when they play next to each other. When Jabari is the primary defender and Tari is adjacent to him helping off, is really nowhere to go. And whether it's passing, whether it's trying to you're trying to beat a guy to a spot, they just help off each other so well. They're both very lengthy. Tari plays the passing lanes very well. Jabari is a good point of attack defender and can move his feet well. I want to see a lot of that on the court and see where that defensive synergy is. So I'm hoping that they do have those type of lineups where both of them do get to share the court. Because I hate the fact that they're like fours against each other.
Tari has to keep showing he can handle the basketball. Ime is also very big on having multiple ball handlers or shot creators. And right now, like I said, Jabari is just a better offensive player. He has the better shot creating ability or in terms of dribbling, and he's just a more consistent shooter in terms of getting respect. I'm not saying he's going to make more than Tari, but in terms of getting respect from a defense, Jabari gets that more than Tari does. And I think that will change, and that will help Tari. I think if you were asking me right now, I would say Jabari would probably edge out Tari in the starting job. But yeah, I want to see more of them together. I think closing lineups would be a perfect chance to see that happen.
Yeah, facts. And the final prospect we'll talk about is Cam Whitmore. So you and Jackson did a pod with his trainer that kind of went into detail about his process and getting prepared and some of the strengths of his game. With Cam, people think I don't like him. I'm really, really high on Cam Whitmore as far as his physical abilities. I think for him that two things that are going to hurt him right now: his age, And by that, I mean that he's still very, very young. He just turned 19 like 2 days ago. I think that age comes with some immaturity on the court, and that'll lead into things like decision making, shot selection, just those team concepts that I think people overlook how much that impacted. I know the medicals were an issue, but I also heard some things about that coming out of Villanova. And if people don't know, Villanova is like it's not a blue blood like Kentucky or Duke. So they don't get guys like Cam Whitmore all the time. And most of the players they get there are these 3-4 year guys that are going to be, team first. And, Cam is a very like a blue chip type of talented player. And I think trying to reconcile that team approach with his talent for a 17-year-old was tough. I mean, that makes sense. He's that young.
Yeah.
How fast he matures and understands his positioning on this team, because it's not the 2021 Rockets where we're going to let the young guy. They're trying to win games. There's vets now. What can Cam Whitmore do? What is his niche that sets him apart, that makes Coach Udoka says, I need to get that kid on the court? Because if his biggest strength is scoring, that's not going to get him on the court, because he's not going to be a efficient enough NBA scorer right now to win that on the court. So my thing for him, and I saw like from game 1 to 2, just he improved on, and I love seeing that. And shout out to the coaches for that. First game, he seemed like he was pressing. He was taking a lot of bad shots. Just wasn't playing within the context of the offense. In the second game, and I think Ben Sullivan kind of refers to this, he was more poised and in control of himself. And those little progressions, I think, with all his natural talents, it'll get him if they're not sending him down to the G League, he can get on the court because he brings like shooting, athleticism, all those things. What do you like about Cam Whitmore? What have you seen from his game so far in the summer league?
I'm going to focus on his defense. I think you're right about the offense, and you touched on everything. Like he can do all those things offensively. For me, defensively, I think where he can help, and when you look at the roster construction, you have Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, and Dillon Brooks, two guys who are tall, and Fred VanVleet. But rebounding, that's going to be an issue. You have Alperen, Sengun, you have your bigs, but the guards play a big role in rebounding the basketball still, right? They have to block out, do all these things. Cam has shown me in 2 summer league games that he can rebound the ball, or he can at least box out or do things, crash the offensive glass, be an energizer kind of guy. So if he wants to get playing time in the regular season in a rotation for at least 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe, then he has to be able to show defensively that he can crash the glass, push the tempo in transition, run hard on the rails and the sidelines, cut hard, use his athleticism to gain an advantage on cuts like he did in the first few possessions with Jabari. Do those nitty-gritty things. I still think, Frank, that he's going to spend a lot of time in G League with Kevin Burleson and the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. Just makes so much sense to me to give him a chance to work on his overall game. But if he gets a chance in Houston, it's going to be because he's fully bought in on using his athleticism as an advantage defensively and offensively, and defensively especially just attacking the boards and being a guy who can kind of disrupt different things.
So you're talking about the KJ Martin role, right?
Basically trading away for 2 second round picks, and you're trying to guy. Now, look, the one thing I think KJ was really good at that didn't get talked about enough, I thought KJ was the Rockets' best screener. It's arguable for debate, but I thought he was their best screener last year because he created an advantage with the slips and different things offensively. I don't know where Cam is as a screener. I've tried to watch. I don't really think he set any screens, if at all. Maybe I've missed it, but I don't know where Cam is as a screener. If Cam can be a good screener and a pick and pop guy, or a guy who can roll to the rim and do things, that could be something. But he's 6'7" and built more like a heavy wing or guard than he is a kind of hybrid wing big, which KJ was, right? And so from that point of view, I don't know. But I'd like to see Cam set some screens and run hard towards the rim and see what he can do. Because the big thing with Ime Udoka's offense that he liked to also do a lot in his year in Boston was run a lot more guard actions. So like setting ghost screens or setting like 1-2 pick and rolls with Jalen and Jason Tatum or Derek White or Marcus Smart, and he liked those small pick and roll actions. Well, Cam Whitmore is a small, but he's also athletic where he can finish around the rim, and he shot 65% around the rim, if I remember correctly. Because a lot of them were dunks. So if he can do that, that can be a role where he sets himself apart as a screener if he can develop into that this season.
Yep, and that's a great point with the Celts. I know Marcus Smart was used as a screener a lot for them because he is a more of a burlier guard, bigger body, and even thinking about Cam and Amanda, the fact that they're kind of built bigger than Jalen when he came in is that they could also slip if they're screening on guards to get a smaller guard. I saw that Amen did try to post up one. I think Cam had 1 or 2 post up attempts, which really, I mean,
that's awesome.
To me, that's exciting, bro. That's exciting stuff to see from guys that are sub 20 at the guard and wing spot. But yeah, man, let's get out of here. I appreciate you coming through, bro. Definitely we'll be seeing more of you in the future. Let everybody know where they can follow you at, dog.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, Rockets_insider. And then also I have a TikTok, Rockets_insider on TikTok as well. So make sure to follow me on there. I'm going to be posting some videos and clips as we go throughout summer league and into the regular season.
We got to get you on Threads, bro. That's the new wave now.
I may be a little too old, man. Yeah, but we'll see. I'll probably
I looked on there. But yeah, appreciate you, man. Shout out to you, and yeah, we'll get you on this around the corner. Okay, appreciate you.
Thanks, man.